My life was a relentless search for answers, a quiet battle against skepticism, until one ordinary night shattered everything I thought I knew. In a single terrifying moment, I slipped beyond the veil of this world, not into darkness, but into a reality so vibrant, so overwhelmingly real, it redefined existence itself. What if everything we believe about life and about death is merely a shadow of the truth?
Hey friends, before we begin this extraordinary journey, a quick note from me, the creator of this channel. If you're new here, consider subscribing and hitting that like button. It really helps more people discover these powerful stories. And if this story resonates with you, please leave a comment. I read every one. Now, take a deep breath, clear your mind, and prepare for a story that may just change how you see life and death.
To me, it defied logic to simply be born, experience, learn, and gain wisdom, only for it all to cease with death. I believed there had to be a deeper purpose, a reason for my very existence. Before September 6, 2020, my life was a meticulous, almost obsessive pursuit of certainty. I was Brian, a self-proclaimed, logical, rational thinker, living a comfortable, if somewhat uninspired, suburban existence. My days revolved around the predictable rhythm of work, raising my sons, and a constant underlying quest for what I called the truth. I wasn't an adventurer or a thrill seeker. My passions were more cerebral, dissecting information, analyzing facts, seeking patterns. My home was in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood, a typical American landscape, and my routine mirrored that normalcy. I was the kind of person who'd rather spend an evening poring over ancient texts than engaging in small talk. My childhood laid the groundwork for this analytical bent, and ironically, for the spiritual crisis that would define a large part of my adult life. I grew up steeped in Catholicism. My parents were deeply involved in the church. My father even DJ'd for the Catholic Youth Organization dances, and I, a dutiful altar boy, absorbed it all. The world seemed neatly ordered, divinely ordained. Then came the devastating pedophilia scandal of the 1990s. It wasn't just a news story. It was a betrayal that shattered the very foundation of my innocent faith. How could the spiritual leaders I trusted, the very institution that promised salvation, commit such unspeakable acts? The dissonance was unbearable. It felt like everything I believed in, everything that gave life meaning, was crumbling before my eyes. This wasn't just a loss of faith. It was a profound personal hurt, a wound that festered for decades. In the aftermath, I embarked on a 20-year-long odyssey, a relentless search for proof of God and eternal life. My analytical mind, once content with the dogma, now demanded empirical evidence. I approached the Bible not as sacred text, but as a document to be critically examined, looking for contradictions, for errors, anything that either dismantle it completely or force me to accept it without doubt. It felt almost sacrilegious, this deconstruction of something I once held so dear, yet I was compelled. I needed to know, deep in my heart, if there was a purpose to my life, and more importantly, if there was an afterlife. The thought of simply ceasing to exist after a lifetime of learning, experiencing, and growing wise seemed utterly illogical, a cosmic joke. My emotional landscape during this period was complex. On the surface, I was a functioning adult, managing responsibilities, raising my children, but beneath it all there was a quiet restlessness, a subtle sense of unfulfillment, a gnawing question that no amount of rational inquiry seemed to answer. I was searching, yes, but often felt adrift, like a ship without a compass. Happiness was present in moments, particularly with my sons, but it was often overshadowed by this intellectual and spiritual hunger.
When my son Colin was born in 2005, my quest intensified. I devoured everything I could get my hands on, agnostic texts, religious scriptures from every tradition imaginable, the Mahabharata, Zoroastrianism, Sethian Gnosticism, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Each offered its own interpretation of God, its unique creation story. Yet a curious pattern emerged. They all seemed to hint at the same fundamental truth, albeit through different lenses. While none provided the definitive proof my logical mind craved, there was an overwhelming, almost intuitive feeling of truth that resonated from the collective wisdom of these diverse ancient traditions. Then came 2009, a year of profound heartbreak and divorce. My studies ground to a halt, overwhelmed with a suffocating anxiety that clung to me from dawn to dusk, even seeping into my dreams. Christmas that year was particularly bleak, spent without my sons. The relentless pain became unbearable, and in a moment of utter desperation, I cried out to God, "Please take my pain away. If you ever loved me as your child, please save me. I cannot take this pain one more day." And then, an instantaneous shift. A profound wave of love washed over me, and the pain, that agonizing, suffocating pain, simply vanished. In that moment, faith was undeniably restored. But the questions, those persistent, nagging questions about existence, only deepened. My intellectual curiosity, now infused with a renewed spiritual conviction, spurred me back into the search. It felt as if the closer I came to a deeper truth, the more susceptible I became to misdirection, to being led astray by superficial explanations. This led me to more revealing texts, particularly the Apocryphon of John and the Nag Hammadi library, including the Gospels of Judas, Mary, and Thomas. They unveiled a profound understanding that had eluded me before. What was always right in front of me now became clear. My true identity, and the undeniable truth that there was no separation from God. The passages from the Gospel of Thomas, in particular, resonated deeply and offered the answers I had sought for so long. Whoever finds the interpretation of these sayings will not experience death, it declared. When you come to know yourselves, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father.
This wasn't just intellectual understanding, it was a spiritual revelation. In 2016, to process this avalanche of insight, I felt compelled to write it all down. We are eternal spiritual beings living a temporary human experience, I penned. We are created by God, by manifestation of His consciousness. His thought became us. We are inseparable from Him, created by Him, His spiritual children in His image, born in physical form. I grappled with the duality within us, the mind, or ego, and the heart, or spirit. The mind, I wrote, is a rational computer, filtering reality through our biases and experiences, leading to opinions masquerading as facts. The heart, conversely, is pure feeling, empathy, compassion, love. The struggle between these two, I realized, was the source of our inner chaos, our anxiety, our grief. My conclusion, after decades of searching, was a profound one. We are created in God's likeness and image. We were never separated. We are a part of God. The kingdom is within you and outside of you. It is all of creation. This belief, forged through years of doubt, study, and a sudden, undeniable moment of divine intervention, became my bedrock. Truth is, we are children of God. We are a part of this divine creation with the power to create life and have children, to perform miracles, heal the sick. We are eternal spiritual beings living a temporary human life to experience it and all its wonders. We died to live this life and will shed the body that clothes us to live eternal life again. Love, I concluded, was the highest vibration, the eternal origin, the purpose of creation and life itself. I thought I had found my answers, that my journey was complete. Little did I know, the greatest revelation was yet to come.
On that fateful evening, September 6th, 2020, my life irrevocably changed. The day I teetered on the brink of death. My heart hammered wildly in my chest, my friends' voices fractured, and an undeniable sensation of impending death washed over me. September 6th, 2020. The day started like any other late summer Sunday. The air was warm and thick with the humidity of the Texas coast, carrying the faint, comforting scent of distant barbecue smoke. My morning routine was habitual, almost ritualistic. Coffee brewed dark, the morning news droning in the background, a quick check of emails, and then the quiet bustle of getting my sons ready. There was no premonition, no shiver down my spine, no sudden darkening of the sky. Just the mundane, reassuring hum of a typical day stretching out before me, filled with the promise of leisure and low-key enjoyment. The kind of day where you expect nothing extraordinary, nothing that would shatter the carefully constructed normalcy of your existence. Later that afternoon, I headed to a friend's house, a familiar gathering place for casual camaraderie. We settled into the relaxed rhythm of conversation, shared laughter, and for me, a significant amount of alcohol. I had been an alcoholic, a habit I was deeply entrenched in, a way to numb the edges of my perpetual seeking and the anxieties that still lingered despite my spiritual revelations. It was a comfortable, almost unconscious indulgence. The hours drifted by, punctuated by drinks and the easy flow of dialogue. The afternoon light softened into twilight, then into the deep blue of evening, and the conversations continued, punctuated by the clinking of glasses. The shift was insidious at first, a subtle discord in the symphony of the evening. I remember my friends' voices. They were clear one moment, and then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, they began to sound shattered, as if their words were breaking into fragments before they reached my ears. It was like listening to a radio station fading out, the signal becoming choppy and distorted. This auditory phenomenon was unsettling, but my mind, dulled by the alcohol, initially dismissed it as a fleeting peculiarity, perhaps a trick of the light, or more likely, the drink. But then came the physical sensation, an undeniable, terrifying crescendo. My heart began pounding out of my chest, not just a rapid beat, but a forceful, almost violent rhythm that reverberated through my entire being. It felt as though an internal drummer had gone rogue, beating against the confines of my ribs with desperate urgency. There was no pain initially, just this intense, shocking thumping. I knew, with a sudden chilling clarity, that something was profoundly wrong. The cause was a potent, unseen force I had accidentally ingested. A significant amount of highly concentrated marijuana brownies. As someone who didn't use drugs, my body was entirely unprepared for such an onslaught. The moment it all hit my bloodstream, it was like a tidal wave. The world around me was already distorted by the fading voices, began to recede. I didn't tell anyone what was happening. A strange instinct, a private desperation, kept me silent. I just lay down, hoping to ride out whatever this was, to simply endure it.
But it wasn't just physical distress. A chilling awareness began to set in.
Within minutes of lying down, I could not only hear but feel my blood flowing through my body. It was a visceral, almost deafening rush, like a torrent confined within a narrow channel. And my heart, this relentless, hammering drum, was fighting a desperate battle to supply oxygen, to keep me alive, even as I felt my brain shutting down. It wasn't a dizzying faint, but a strange, dispassionate sense of cognitive decline, as if the lights in my mind were slowly dimming, one by one. The physical turmoil was immense, but what truly struck me was the complete absence of anxiety, fear, or panic. In a situation that should have been terrifying, a profound calm settled over me. Instead of dread, I felt pure love, comfort, and an overwhelming sense of awareness. This was the ultimate paradox. My body was betraying me. My mind was giving way, yet my internal state was one of serene clarity, of profound understanding. There was no struggle, no fight, just a quiet knowing acceptance of what was happening. The tension in the room, the fading voices of my friends, all seemed distant, irrelevant. My focus, my entire being was now turned inward, towards the extraordinary, peaceful dissolution of my physical self. The threshold was approaching, and I was, inexplicably, ready.
As my mind succumbed, my awareness and consciousness detached from my physical form. My consciousness didn't reside in my head, but pulsed from my heart. My soul, a pulsating torrent of energy, emanated an immense, indescribable love, an oceanic feeling capable of filling the cosmos, yet momentarily contained within my chest. The world as I knew it was unraveling. The thumping in my chest wasn't just a physical sensation anymore, it was the drumbeat of departure. My brain, once my trusty analytical engine, was gracefully, almost gently, powering down. There was no struggle against it, no panicked fight for survival. Instead, an extraordinary sense of pure love and comfort enveloped me. It was a warmth, a softness that seemed to seep into every fiber of my fading being, dispelling any trace of the fear that should have been overwhelming. Then came the separation. It wasn't a violent rupture, but a smooth, almost fluid uncoupling. My awareness, my consciousness, which had always resided firmly within the confines of my skull, now shifted. It wasn't in my head, it was centered in my heart. And from this new locus of being, an incredible phenomenon occurred. My soul was pounding through my heart with intense energy and force. It wasn't a painful throbbing, but an explosive, joyous pulsation, radiating an indescribable amount of love. A love so vast, so profound, it felt as though it could fill the entire universe, yet it was somehow bottled up within my chest, straining to be unleashed. As my physical heart beat a dangerous, frantic rhythm, my soul heart, ripped out of my chest, connected to my eyes and consciousness by what I can only describe as a tether cord. This wasn't a messy, visceral tearing, but a clean, explosive feeling of my soul leaving my body. It was like an umbilical cord, not of flesh, but of pulsating light, strings connecting this vibrant heart light to my perception and awareness. Just as a newborn is linked to the womb of life, I was connected to my earthly vessel, but it was a link poised to be severed, to unleash me into something entirely new. Suddenly, I found myself suspended in a comfortable dark area, observing my physical body from about 20 feet above. My body lay still on the couch, eyes closed, a silent shell. I couldn't see the room's surroundings, only my inert form, illuminated by a small light shining down from somewhere to my right. It was a strange, detached tableau. My friends were still talking, their voices now mere shattered fragments in my perception,
like a radio signal fading in and out on a long drive. I had a dual awareness. The me outside my body, keenly aware and unfettered, and the numb, barely hearing body I had left behind. The auditory connection was tenuous, like a broken signal, but it was enough to confirm that my body was still there, but I, the real I, was no longer bound by it. My soul was completely detached and free. The feeling was of absolute lightness and unbounded freedom, a stark contrast to the dense, limited reality of earthly existence. I felt as though I could move without effort, without friction, unbound by gravity or any physical constraint. A profound calmness permeated my being, an euphoria that surpassed any joy I had ever known. Every inhibition I had carried, every burden of my human form was shed. I was pure awareness, pure potential.
Then, to my left, I felt a presence. Not a visual entity, not even a light, but a distinct being. It had no discernible form, no defined edges, yet its presence was undeniable, a subtle ripple in the otherwise serene darkness. This was my guide. We didn't communicate with words. It was a silent, direct knowing. Thoughts, intentions, understandings simply transferred between us. There was an immediate, overwhelming sense of acceptance, love, and joy emanating from this presence. My new awareness was more real than real, far more vivid and authentic than any earthly experience. The happiest moment of my entire life couldn't compare to the profound bliss of this connection. A powerful realization washed over me. My loved ones would be fine without me. There was no attachment, no lingering earthly concern. My desire to return to my body was absolutely non-existent. In that boundless space, with that loving presence beside me, a choice was offered: to stay, to leave, to continue. My overwhelming desire, my soul's deepest yearning, was to go with my guide. I accepted my death with a serenity that still astonishes me. As I accepted, the feeling was not of following, but of being pulled uncontrollably by this guide, by my heart, which pulsed with light. We ascended from earth, not with effort, but with an effortless, soaring momentum. It was as if a cosmic current had caught me, drawing me upwards. As I moved, my consciousness, still tethered to my sight, began to perceive glass pictures of my loved ones, my children, my family. They appeared, clear and vibrant, then shattered like broken glass and fell away, dissolving into the expanding void behind me. There was no sadness in this dissolution, only a profound sense of peace. Leaving everything in my life behind, the past, the present, all the earthly attachments simply ceased to matter. The guide pulled me further, far above earth, and then, at an unimaginable light speed, we hurtled through the universe. The cosmos exploded into a beautiful funnel of stars, a wormhole of indescribable colors. Streaks of vibrant light, unlike anything known on Earth, swirled around me. It was like traversing a cosmic kaleidoscope, a dazzling, exhilarating ride. And through it all, there was a profound sense of familiarity. I was going home. We emerged from the tunnel into a comfortable, familiar space, somewhere in another realm. I had traveled through galaxies, past stars, and was now eons away from my physical body in Earth. The closer I got to our destination, to where I was being led, the stronger the sensations became. Pure bliss, unadulterated joy, infinite love, and an overwhelming connection saturated my being. It was beyond words, beyond any human capacity to describe. My senses were exquisitely heightened. The loss of my body felt not like a diminishment, but an empowerment. It was as if I had shed the dense, constricting garment of my physical form, revealing the true, boundless self beneath. My soul, pulled along this unknown path, felt like a newborn, without the knowledge to speak, yet keenly aware and absorbing everything. I was in this vast, dark area in space, yet I could see. Before me unfolded a nebula of breathtaking beauty, and all around me galaxies full of color and splendor. These weren't mere images, they were living, breathing, celestial tapestries. It was here, amidst this cosmic grandeur, that I perceived a life review, not in a linear, forced progression, but as pictures of memories and experiences spread out before me. They were somewhat distant and blurry, like an album waiting to be opened. They were stacked one by one in an endless line, a complete chronicle of my earthly existence.
The most striking aspect of this life review was the absolute absence of judgment. There was no external force compelling me, no accusatory gaze. It was simply my choice to look into them or not. I felt it was my picture album of my life, memories for eternity as a keepsake. Curiosity, a profound, unburdened curiosity, drew me towards them. As I mentally accepted what would be revealed, the pictures, the memories began to clarify. I realized I could slide them with my hands, left and right, in and out of view. It was an interactive, fluid experience waiting to be explored. But before I could fully delve into this personal cosmos of memory, a profound shift occurred. I felt the guide to my left leaving my presence. There were still no words, no telepathic communication, but I felt its presence, that comfortable connection of love pulling away from me. It radiated a profound, unconditional love, and though I had felt it resonating in me, I now realized it was radiating from the guide itself, and it was now diminishing as it receded. It was no longer the subtle, formless presence I first encountered. As it moved away, I perceived it as a tiny black spot, growing smaller, disappearing. The suddenness of its departure, without explanation, without a final communication, was jarring. I could have spent eternity there, alone, completely happy and content, in awe of the universe with my memories and this silent, loving guide. But now it had suddenly cut me off and fled. The bliss, the joy, the peace, it all dissolved. Fear and panic set in. Abandoning the life review, I cried out, my voice resonating not from a physical throat, but from the depths of my being. "Please, take me with you," I screamed, over and over with all my emotion and intention. But it was leaving me faster than I could chase it, receding into the vastness. Years ago, I had cried out to God in desperation and been answered with immediate comfort and love. This time, I was alone, disconnecting from what I could only describe as a guide, or perhaps a guardian sent by God, the source of the love I had felt. As I realized I was lost, with no guide, my sense of protection and comfort was gone. As I slammed back into my body, my mind snapped to a razor-sharp clarity. Yet I desperately kept my eyes shut, fearing that the last lingering echo of infinity would vanish. I yearned for death. The fall was relentless, a sickening plunge back through the layers of existence. The feeling was visceral, like running off a cliff and falling, but magnified to an unfathomable degree. The divine current that had effortlessly carried me across the universe, the very force that pulled me towards an indescribable home, had abruptly cut me off and turned away. There was no more gentle guidance, only a terrifying, uncontrollable descent. I was falling, and with each passing realm the exquisite sense of oneness and pure love was torn away from me. The further I plummeted, back towards my physical body, the worse the horror and misery became. It was an abandonment unlike any I had ever known, a profound detachment from God. There was no explanation, no gentle preparation for this forced return. My journey to what I believed was so close to heaven had been the happiest moment of my life, a joy I knew I would never again experience on earth. The separation, conversely, was the absolute worst, a pain that transcended any physical or emotional suffering. Then, with a sickening jolt, I crashed down into my body. It wasn't a gentle re-entry. It was a violent, jarring impact. Instantly, my mind was clear and razor-sharp, a stark contrast to the shutting down I'd experienced moments before. I was aware, I was awake, but I stubbornly refused to open my eyes. A desperate, clinging fear gripped me, the fear that the last vestiges of that infinite connection, that profound love and understanding, would vanish if I fully returned to this dense, limited reality. I remember thinking, with an intensity that bordered on agony, I wanted to die. The infinite feeling of love, the profound connection to everything, was abruptly lost, condensed back into this heavy, confining shell of a body. I held my breath, hoping, praying that I could somehow die and go back, re-enter that celestial current. It was no use. I was undeniably stuck here, and the misery was absolute. When I finally forced my eyes open, blinking back the tears that hadn't yet fallen, I saw my friends. They were still there, oblivious, completely unaware of the cosmic journey I had just undertaken. The sheer disconnect was overwhelming. I sat up, my body feeling heavy and foreign, and simply stared blankly into the room, lost in an extreme feeling of separation and loneliness. Knowing my true eternal self now, I distinctly perceive the egotistical mind as separate from the physical body I inhabit in this reality. It's truly peculiar to grasp that I am not the reflection in the mirror, but merely a spirit utilizing this body at will. The morning after was a rebirth of sorts, not into the cosmic bliss I had just left, but into a profoundly altered terrestrial existence. I accepted being back, yes, but I was forever changed. Something fundamental had shifted within me. It was as if a residual glow of that overwhelming love still surrounded my heart, a constant, comforting warmth. My senses felt heightened, my intuition sharper. I could sense things with a new clarity, perceiving the world through a completely different lens. The mundane suddenly held a subtle luminescence, and the previously unseen contours of reality became undeniably apparent. My prior two-decade quest for proof had culminated in an undeniable knowing. The skepticism that had once been my defining characteristic melted away, replaced by an absolute certainty. I no longer needed faith in God, because I knew. I knew that God is absolutely real, and that heaven, or at least a realm incredibly close to it, was a place I had indeed visited. All the lingering questions that had plagued me for years were answered in that one extraordinary night. It's a comforting, liberating feeling to no longer grapple with doubt, to simply know. I believe God allowed me to witness this for myself precisely because of my persistent, hard-headed nature. I wouldn't stop seeking answers, so He gave me this revelation. It was a brief, profound insight, enough to prove everything to me, yet leaving much to be discovered in due time. This near-death experience was a blessing, a gift given because I wouldn't cease my inquiry. This new worldview brought with it profound global changes in my life. The man who awoke that morning was not the same man who had fallen asleep. My priorities, once centered on intellectual conquest and personal anxieties, now shifted dramatically. Frivolous and arbitrary things that once occupied my thoughts and time, material possessions, superficial status, even certain social obligations, lost their grip entirely. They seemed utterly meaningless in the face of what I had witnessed. What I had once valued, I now saw as trivial. What I now valued was connection, purpose, and love. This manifested in tangible ways. I had been an alcoholic, a coping mechanism, but that desire, that need, simply vanished. The internal conflict between the mind, the ego, and the heart, the spirit, that I had theorized about now had a visceral reality. I could sense my egotistical mind as a separate entity from my true eternal self, operating within the body I occupied. It's an odd, almost disorienting feeling to realize that the person I see in the mirror is merely the temporary vessel for my spirit to use at will. This understanding has allowed me to kill the ego, to quiet its incessant demands, and prioritize the promptings of my heart. I now strive to always do what is right, to correct my mistakes with humility, and to approach every interaction with patience and compassion.
A new sense of purpose ignited within me. While I wasn't given marching orders or a specific divine mandate for my return, a deep-seated urge to serve and help my community took root in my heart. This wasn't a logical decision, it was an innate calling. I started a non-profit for single-parent families, a project born purely out of this newfound desire to contribute. I've become deeply involved in local government, appointed to the Community Development Advisory Committee and the Police Advisory Committee, even serving as president of my neighborhood association. These weren't ambitions I harbored before. They are direct expressions of this new, outward-focused self. My relationships with my family deepened, becoming more authentic and filled with a conscious appreciation. I am a self-proclaimed introvert, INTP, but the NDE pushed me out of my shell. I learned to stick my head out of the nest and fly, engaging with people in my community in ways I never would have dared before. My passions, like cooking and sharing food, became not just hobbies, but avenues for connection and generosity, shedding the guilt I once felt for pursuing leisure activities. I now live with a sense of wonderment and excitement, exploring life as a child might, embracing its simple joys. The most profound and liberating aspect of this transformation is the absence of fear. I have no fear of death, because I now know with absolute certainty that we never truly die. Dying isn't an end, it's a metamorphosis. We shed our physical body like a caterpillar transforms into a butterfly. We don't see the transition of a person because we can't perceive the realm they enter, but it is simply a shedding, a return. We are souls, eternal spiritual beings, entering a temporary human life to experience it, and then discarding the body to return home. Of course, the integration hasn't been without its difficulties and challenges. The most prominent has been the misunderstanding and dismissal from others. When I tried to share my experience, people often want to know how I almost died, or the cause of the NDE, so they can rationalize and dismiss it. The richness and truth of the experience often get lost in their attempts to categorize it as a mere hallucination. It can be isolating, this chasm between my reality and the conventional understanding of life and death. But I don't seek external validation. My internal knowing is absolute. I no longer worry about anything the way I did before. I understand now that the only thing truly real is that which never changes, and everything on earth is temporary. Love, the highest vibration, the eternal origin of the most powerful creative source, God, is the only constant. It is our eternal gift, the blessing we share and connect with. This is the truth I was seeking. Love is the purpose of creation and life. My NDE was a brief glimpse, a profound insight, enough to give me the answers I relentlessly sought. I was shown enough to know, and for the rest, I trust. I intend to enjoy my second chance here to the fullest, following the path God lays out for me until I am called back home. And I know, with every fiber of my being, that I will be. So help me God.
Thank you so much for watching this video. This was one of the most powerful and emotional stories I've ever come across. If it touched you, made you think, or gave you even a moment of clarity, please subscribe, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. I truly hope that you're doing well wherever you are in life right now. If you're going through something, you're not alone. I'm praying for peace
and strength for each and every one of you. God bless you, and take care.